This is Pivot Perspectives with Chris O'Byrne, the show that takes you around the world to share interviews with some of the most successful and relevant people on the planet. Hear their stories and get the most important business lessons they've learned on their road to success, and get exclusive access on how to implement their success into your life and business. Pivot Perspectives is brought to you by the Strategic Advisor Board and your host, Chris O'Byrne.
Chris Felton, welcome to the show.
Chris, it's great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. There are a few different areas of your life that I want to explore today, but the first one I want to dig into is what you do with financial services. Can you tell me what you do and what's unique about it?
Yeah, I'm a kind of a holistic, all-encompassing financial planner and financial advisor. I think I do a lot of the same things a lot of people do, without getting into like what makes my firm specific and what I think makes us unique. I think what makes me different as an advisor is I had a coach many years ago that said, "Hey, what's more important, the golf club or the golf swing?" And being a 17 handicap for the last 40 plus years, I've always thought it was the golf club, right? If I could just find the right technology, the right golf club. But really it's the golf swing, and I have zero desire to work on my golf swing. So my golf game never gets better. So I think what makes me different is I think life's 100% mindset mentality. And I think mindset around money is everything. And so the golf club is what I do as far as implementations of products and services. But I think what makes me different is really getting to the mindset and the mentality that creates the financial results, because that's kind of where it's won and lost. So I do the golf swing and the golf club. A lot of advisors just sell golf clubs. So.
Yeah, okay, that makes sense then. You get to the root cause of why they're in the position they're in and how to get to where they want to get. And the mindset is a huge part of that. So that's something I haven't heard any other financial service provider of any sort talk about personally. So who would you say then is your ideal client, and what makes them ideal?
Yeah, I mean, one of my favorite quotes is, I'm best to serve the person I once was, and I put out a couple LinkedIn articles lately. One is, why are there so many smart, talented, broke people? That was the first article, and then I just published one today that is, broke financial advisor. How did that happen? And that was me. I CPA background, financial advisor. And, at one point in my life, I was, $250,000 in credit card debt and staring down my second divorce. And I was a mess. So here was a guy that was telling people what to do with their money, but he wasn't eating his own cooking, right? And it wasn't because I didn't know what to do. It's just I had some serious head trash around money, and I didn't know I had it. So I just worked harder and worked more, and I had all these things that I did except trying to figure out what the root cause was. And it was really frustrating to know what to do but not be able to get the results. So my ideal client is that, smart, talented person who just is really struggling around money. And unfortunately, there's a lot of them in the United States for sure. So those are great clients for me.
So what are the main struggles related to mindset, the root cause, that your ideal customer has?
Yeah, I mean, studies show that in this psychology, and we've all heard it, and but we're like 50% programmed by the age of 4, right? Like we're like, money's good, money's bad, people are good, people are bad, friendly world, unfriendly world, you're good, you're not, and by the time we're 10, it's, 75%. So by the time we're 18, we're like 95% hardwired, programmed around money. And in my instance, my programming was rich people suck. They take advantage of people. They make money on the backs of poor people. Like, it won't make you happy. Can't take it with you. Like, us Feltons aren't supposed to have money. Just all this programming. And then, Chris, you pile on, how society programs us. Wealthy people are portrayed in a pretty negative light. And, you look at movies like the Titanic, right? Right? The broke poor people are downstairs having the party of their lives, and the really wealthy people are upstairs in their stuffy, tuxedos, hating each other, and they're just miserable people. So we get crazy messaging around wealth. So anyway, to answer your question, it's that programming we get, but we don't really ever check in on it because it's unconscious. And so, but, studies have shown, and I have good friends that have done a lot of work in this arena, that that's just about everybody. But the world class that do a good job at wealth, at some point in their life, they do an exploration project to figure out what are those limiting beliefs. And I did it at 37 because I had to, because my back was against the wall. I was either going to declare bankruptcy, go through yet another divorce, quit my entrepreneurial dream, or do the work to really figure out what it is. But, hard to make, hard to keep. Broke people usually have some hard thing going on, right? And it's, it's some combination of, it's limiting, it's negative, and it repels money. So until you realize that, fixing the external world is never going to fix your problem.
So what are some of the questions you ask your clients to get to the root of what's going on with them?
Yeah, I mean, it was, I hired a coach that I worked with for 4.5 years he was financially independent. So there was a ton of people that wanted to coach me, but they were just as broke as I was. And so I wasn't gonna, take their lead. If you weren't living the results, I wasn't super interested in you. But my coach had been, financially free for decades. And he gave me an exercise that I give everybody I coach. He said, I want you to get a journal, a green money journal. And he said, you don't have a money problem anymore. You have a money project, right? And so that was subtle but earth-shattering for me, because problems we view, we're victim, like, oh my God, there's the problem. It's too big. I can't, problems hang out in our lives forever. Projects we view differently. Projects were like, okay, I'm going to plow through. I'm going to face some resistance, but I'm going to get that project done. I will see the project through to the end. So I had a money project. But the first part of that project was, he said, I want you to write down the word money in your journal, and I want you to write up everything you make up about that word. And that's what we do. We spin stories, right? And so I had, I shared some of them, but, it's in my book. I mean, I had a list of really bad stories around money. And I'm like, oh, I finally met the enemy, and it is I, right? Like, it was obvious. There was no way that internal story was going to, create wealth for me. But it was empowering because I identified it, and then I was able to rewrite a different story. And I knew if I could change the story, I could change my world. And that's exactly what happened.
Yeah, we'd be a lot better off if we didn't believe our beliefs. They hold us down more than they help us.
Yeah.
So what is the process like when somebody works with you?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the first step is, like I said, I mean, most advisors, they get in front of you and they're like, oh, your budget, and you're this and you do this, and where's your accounts, and my investment does better than that. And it's kind of that thing. But I'm more like, hey, let's figure out what your relationship with money is. What is your money story? And then, like what me and my wife did as she decided to keep me, and we're $250,000 in debt, and we're financial services entrepreneurs going into the Great Recession, and I have a 6,000 square foot office lease I can't afford. It was kind of a mess. I'm paying my ex-wife $5,200 at the beginning of the month. It was nasty. But instead of putting all our energy on woe is me and focusing on problems and playing victim, her and I sat down and we set, I call it a unifying goal. And this is what I do with people. I'm like, what's the number one goal? And for her, it was, hey, I want $100,000 in the bank saved, which felt like Mount Everest. But we spent time, Chris, not just talking about how we were going to do that, because from my coach, I learned, the people that struggle with money are always focused on how they're going to do it. But the high performers and the world-class thinkers, they really come up with the whys of why they want to do it, why they should do it. And so we spent an hour really talking about why did the goal matter? And it was, we were sick of fighting around money. We were sick of financial stress. We hate financial stress. I was sick of, what it was doing to her. I couldn't see my kids who lived on the other side of the country, right? Because I was too broke to go see them. I'm like, well, I don't know. Maybe we're getting handed something that we're supposed to kind of overcome and develop some muscles that we're going to hopefully bless other people down the road, which has happened, thank God. But we really got the why going. And my analogy always is, if you're going from point A to point B and you have a Ferrari, the Ferrari's great, but if there's no gas in the tank, it's not going anywhere. So the gas in the tank for our vehicle is, really these reasons. So when I work with somebody, it's really about what is it? What do you want? Why do you want it? Why do you care? Why does it matter? And then, after that, it's really about, okay, what are the next small steps that you can take to move towards that?
Got it. I'm curious, what lessons have you learned about marriage going through all of this? Because you had struggles and you came out successful on the other side. And so I think you have some insights related to this that would be pretty helpful.
Yeah. And her and I wrote a book called Couples Money that, really talks about that journey. But, I think there was a lot, but, when we were kind of at our worst point and we just had really the worst fight of our marriage, and she's upstairs trying to figure out if she's going to stay with me, right? It was an enlightening moment, Chris, because I actually went back to my first marriage and I realized that failed because I expected it to fail. I subconsciously expected it to fail. And my ex-wife, and I write about it in my book, she actually had no chance because I was going to blow that up. And I didn't really realize it. It's all about making what's unconscious conscious. And at that point, what was unconscious beneath the surface became super clear. And I was like, she never had a chance. So one of my favorite quotes is, you don't get what you hope for, you get what you expect. So I could have hoped that our marriage succeeded, but if I expected it to fail, I was going to see that through. So it's all about, in your heart of hearts, really, what are you expecting? What are you expecting out of your marriage? Are you expecting just to get by? Are you expecting to thrive? But I think the other thing I learned was, when my wife was upstairs trying to figure out, should I stay or should I go? Excuse me. In her moment of intense stress and strain, she chose to focus on the good things in me. And, we all hear the famous saying, it gets beat up, what you focus on expands. But it is really the law in personal growth and development. Wherever you place your attention is what you get. And so my tendency in relationships, even before my first marriage, was we'd hit a rough patch, we'd have some resistance. Instead of searching for what was good in them, I would search for what was wrong with them. And then I'm like, well, there's all these wrong things. Time for me to exit and go find the relationship that's, all sunshine, lollipops, and roses, and requires no work, and it's just this unicorn thing. And I watched my dad do that, right? So I was kind of following that pattern. So what I learned from my wife, I learned a ton. But that was a good one. That was a big one. And it's just always like, as it relates to her, what am I focused on? Am I focused on what's wrong with her? Or am I focused on what I love about her? Because you will get whatever you focus on anywhere in your life. And whatever results you're getting right now, it's because that's where your attention is.
Yes, totally, totally. So regarding your clients, can you share some success stories that you've had, that they've had?
Yeah. Yeah. I have a great client who's, wildly successful realtor who, just wins tons of awards and just kicks ass, and she's social media queen. I mean, she's unbelievable. She's a great mom and all that. But, like me, very similar to the way I was. I mean, I was having success in my business. I was getting trophies and getting recognized and all that, but why was I still broke, right? And so she just kind of replicated what my coach did for me. So we just went through, hey, what's your money story? And she had a big one, like, when's the shoe going to drop? Right? It's going good. It can't last forever, right? When's it going to fall? When's it going to fail? When's the money that I'm going to have saved? And then we went to work on just, okay, like, we don't need to have that. When that comes up, like, let's just work on shifting and redirecting, and let's start putting in some more empowering beliefs, and gave her some systems to do that. And then we set this, she's like, I want that. I want that 100,000 saved, right? She's like, I've never saved anywhere near that. I'm like, okay, it's great. So let's just chunk that thing down, right? We're at base camp looking up at Mount Everest. Let's not look at the peak. Let's focus on base camp 1, right? Let's get that first 10 grand saved, and let's create the momentum, and it's been powerful. And so she blew past that, years ago, and has bought some rental properties and continues to drive her income, because we talked about, hey, there is this thing called your income thermostat. There's this amount of money that you see yourself making. Like, you got to do some work to see yourself more successful, and it's been pretty cool. And watching that, and then, there's a great Billy Graham quote that, he said, once you get your attitude straight around money, it helps straighten out every area of your life. That was true for me. My health changed, my spirituality changed, my relationships with my wife, my kids, like, everything transformed. And it's been pretty cool to watch the same thing happen to her. And so much, it was a few weeks ago. She's like, hey, can you get on a Zoom with my, 19-year-old and my 24-year-old, and let's talk about this stuff around mindset and money, and not being stupid with your money, and, all these cool things, and getting the right habits in place. And, they were easier to teach than her, obviously. 'Cause
Yeah.
they don't have all the freaking garbage and programming that we have to defunk. Right. But, that's been pretty rewarding, just kind of watching that, doing this for 25 years, watching the next generation kind of step in, and they're infinitely better than we are. And that's happened with my kids, and it's pretty cool.
That is great. So switching gears a little, tell me about your professional speaking career.
Yeah. The problem I solve is financial stress. I mean, that's what I do. And my ideal audiences are, entrepreneurs, business owners, people in the mortgage, real estate, financial advisor space. And I really come in and talk about, the name of my book is Think and Grow You, how to get out of your own way and level up your life. Just really understanding, how do we get in our own way around money, right? What is stopping us from having the kind of abundance and success that we want? So, yeah, so I do, 45 minutes, 60-minute keynotes, half-day workshops, full-day workshops. In my book, I got over 50 different concepts that usually I can talk on, 2 to 3 in a keynote and 6 to 8 in a workshop. But it's really all about, rewriting that story and getting people on a path to changing their financial lives.
So, as a speaker, what are some things that you had to learn the hard way?
I think my biggest thing was speaking, and it's my speaking coach told me. She said, she said, "Hey, I'm a great cook, and I have this like huge spice rack of like hundreds of spices, and when I cook a meal, I only bring out a few of the spices. I don't bring out the whole spice rack. So my tendency that I've learned, I've gotten better, I'm still not perfect, is I want to deliver so much freaking value that I bring out the whole spice rack, right? And it's great and it's entertaining and there's a lot of value there, but it's too much, And so the exits as people were leaving the crowd, hey, what'd you learn? I don't know. I'm inspired.
Oh,
Chris got me inspired. I don't know. So, just I have to like pull back. I'm like, I got to put that. No, you don't. Does it? Do you? Like I have to pull stuff out of my talk, and then just get way more into the storytelling of things, because people remember stories. They don't remember the how-tos of it. So, just getting the key stories dialed in, focused on getting a reaction every 90 seconds or so, and kind of tell a story, make a point. So it's been pretty transformational for me. I still feel like I'm fifth grade on it, but I'm a lot better than I used to be.
yeah, yeah. Now, you mentioned having a speaking coach. What are your thoughts about having coaches?
Well, I mean, I think left to our own devices as humans, we either do nothing or we do the wrong thing often, right? Or we procrastinate, and I don't know. I just think we all have blind spots, and my coach, when I hired him the first time, and I thought I was fine, and I spent the first 6 months trying to impress him with how great I was. He was like, "Dude, based on results, how is your way working?" It's my least favorite question, right? He's like, based on results, how's your way working? So, if you like your results, I guess you don't need coaching. But I don't know, man. I would be nowhere without coaching and mentoring, and So I just think it's stupid not to find somebody that's infinitely more successful than you. I mean, I had a book coach. I mean, my book coach has sold, a few million books. So the way I would have went about that book versus how it turned out, I mean, it's just not even close because of his experience, right? So why not leverage someone's experience to get better results quicker? Like, duh.
Yeah, yeah. It should be a no-brainer, but surprisingly, there aren't a lot of brains out there.
Yeah. Your ego's like, you got it. Your ego's not your amigo. But I've
Yeah, for sure.
always been pretty dang coachable, thank God.
Yeah, yeah. That's a very important trait to have. Let's talk about your book, Think and Grow You. Why should someone read that?
Yeah, it's the reason I wrote the book is I know what it's like to just be really stuck in your life. Obviously, I shared some of that today. And I just think, pandemic and all the crap going on in the United States and the world and all that, I just feel that people are really, really stuck. And it's okay to get stuck, but it's not okay to stay there. But I know what it's like to be so stuck that you feel like kind of giving up's the only way. And I'm empathetic to that because I was really close to doing that. But I didn't. And instead of, quitting, giving up, retreating, settling, I decided, to change me and grow me. So, really it's it's for the person that wants to grow and develop. And the way the book's written is there's 50 concepts, but it's a concept, and it's 400 to 500 words of a teaching that probably most people in personal development have heard. And there's a quote that backs up what I was teaching, and then there was a resource, a book, a podcast, a technology I used to kind of change my life, and then there was an action step that I used to change my life. And then it's my personal story behind that that's 600 to 800 words that backs up what I'm teaching, right? So it's, and basically the formula of the writing is, I was a mess. I woke up to being a mess. I decided to do something about being a mess. And then I transformed my life around money, around being an entrepreneur, around being a father, around being a husband or whatever. And I'm not purporting to be some guru or have it all figured out, but there has been some transformation there. And so why somebody would want to get the book is I think there's some good, I think success leaves clues. And I think there's some really good concepts in there that, it's not necessarily about grabbing a book and reading through it, and you don't get a gold star for that, right? Like you look at the table of contents and you're like, I got a real forgiveness challenge, right? So what did Chris do to forgive his ex-wife, which was really hard to do? What was the process he went through to do that? And then reading the story about what that's meant, or judgment or money, or, I got a couple really good things in there on sales. I got some really cool things in there on how to, my coach said, you're a great goal setter, but you really suck as a goal achiever. You're great at setting them. Why don't you hit them? Well, he had to really teach me a system on how to do that. So there's some real tangible how-tos in there about how to move your life forward too. So lots of content.
Yeah, 50 of them. Could you share one of the sales related concepts?
Yeah, the big one is, my coach called it clear the agenda, right? And so in, 2008, when, I got all this debt, trying to figure it out, I'm bleeding, thousands a month, there was pressure, to produce, obviously, right? But that pressure was getting communicated non-verbally to my client, right? I had to make it happen. I crossed that really fine line from determination to neediness, right? And I think Sandler Sales calls it commission breath, right? I had commission breath, right? And if you've ever had commission breath, it's pretty stinky. And so I couldn't close a freaking door. Like I couldn't believe it was maddening. And I'm a decent sales guy. So I'm driving down the road talking to my coach. We had these check-ins every week. And I'm like, Coach, I just don't know what's going on. He's like, oh, yeah. When you go in there, you have an agenda. And they smell it. And I went, pulled off the side of the road. I still can remember it, Chris. I'm in a parking lot of bowling alley. And I'm like, what? He's like, oh, yeah. He's like, you got an agenda, man. Yeah, it's just you're trying to get something from them. You're not verbalizing it, but they're feeling it unconsciously, and it's making them uneasy. So you're getting these think it overs and him and haws, and it's just not working. I'm like, so what do I need to do? He's like, you need to clear the agenda. I'm like, well, how do I do that? He's like, your next appointment, I want you to get there, 30 minutes before, grab a pad of paper, right? Write down what you're going to recommend, and then write down every way that they're going to win by you making that recommendation. I want you to write down everything that's in it for them. Clear your agenda. And dude, I really needed to close this piece of business. Like mortgage relied on it, but I got there. I got there 45 minutes early, and I literally sat there and I just wrote down all the reasons this client was going to win. And, the first sales job in sales is on you. All right, the first sales job's on
Yes.
you. So as I did that, I'm like, shit, this is pretty good. Right? This is pretty good versus I got to make this, I got to convince them, overcome the objections, all this. So I actually got excited about what was going to be in it for them. And so I wrote it down, walked in there, made the recommendation. I'm like, what do you guys want to do next? They're like, sounds awesome. Let's do the paperwork. Let's go.
Oh
So I did
man.
that forever until I no longer needed to because it just that shift over. But that was my coach was unbelievable. But clearing your agenda, that's a good sales piece right there. That'll
Yeah,
serve you
that
well.
is a huge lesson.
Yeah.
So, when you first published your book, what were your expectations of what it would do for your business?
You know, I wasn't sure, you know, like expectation wise, what it was going to do. I mean, I still have some pretty lofty expectations for it. I mean, I just, you know, God kind of put this book on my heart, man. Like it was just kind of like write it, you know, and I just, you know, set aside 45 minutes a day early in the morning and I just, you know, kind of got in the zone and I kind of wrote it. And then I had a coach and, you know, we went through 5 drafts and we took 9 months on the first draft and we took about 15 months on the whole project. But really, you know, my goal was I got my 2 kids and I wanted to kind of, you know, not take this hard fought wisdom to my grave. And so, you know, I wanted to make sure they had a recording of their dad. And my goal was really, you know, hopefully this book kind of lives through generations in my family. So, my goal is still sell 1 million copies, but I'm far away from that, obviously. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know as far as expectations for my financial advisory business. I don't know. I didn't really see them tying together, but they definitely do tie together.
Yeah. Yeah. So, what advice do you have for authors? What are some things that you learned the hard way or wish you would have done differently?
Yeah, I mean, I think uh, kind of a you know a distant mentor that I was around for a long time. We didn't directly mentor, but I heard him speak enough. He coined one of my favorite quotes: "Slow down to hurry up," and it's a beautiful phrase, and it's a super phenomenal way to build a business, and it's a phenomenal way to write a book. Is you know slow
Mm.
down to hurry up, because you know, and my book coach Steve Siebold, who's just a legend in the personal development space, even though a lot of people haven't heard of him. He's like, we just got to bleed this thing out, right? And what he actually had me do first, Chris, is he said, hey, I just want you to write your personal history from the beginning of time till now. Just write your personal
Mm.
history. It's actually a phenomenal exercise. Um, you know, you just because there was thing, you know, as you write, you know, and you kind of get in this zone and you're kind of flowing. Like it was pretty amazing, like what some things that were hitting me that were really transformational in my life. And, you know, if I would have zigged instead of zagged, like just looking back on just some of these small moments of time where, you know, I made the right decision, but if I would have zagged the other way, who knows where it would have ended up. But, you know, that was a pretty cool exercise to go from the very beginning and spend, you know, a month writing my personal history. And then as we dove into the book, he said, I don't want you to write content. I want you to write your 50 best stories from what you just wrote. And then we'll write the content around your stories. So that was cool. That was cool. So things I would have done different. I'm not sure. I mean, I love how it turned out. I think taking your time on it. You know, I think anyone that's out there that's, you know, selling you, hey, you can write a book in a month. I'm like, I don't know why that's necessary. Um, because he said, hey, this thing's going to be out here forever. So why don't we just take our time with it and make sure it's golden?
Yeah. Yeah. seeing less and less of that philosophy. And I like that phrase, slow down to hurry up. It's similar to what I taught my 7-year-old has this memorized. She says, slow is smooth, smooth is fast. And yeah, that is such a good lesson. So as we wrap things up, what are some parting words of advice you have?
Yeah, I mean, I think one of my favorite things to live by, I have to remind myself often is, there's no happy ending to an unhappy journey, right? And I was so caught up in, one day I'll be happy once this happens and when that happens, and but now I'm just gonna grind, and it's got to be a bitch, and I gotta pay the price and all that stuff, which you have to grind, you have to pay the price, but I think stress and overwhelm are totally optional. And if I had to go back, I would have told my younger self to just freaking relax, right? Just chill out.
Yeah.
Like, everything's going to turn out okay. Like, you worrying right now about everything's just it's not serving you. So no happy ending to an unhappy journey. So once I started experiencing more joy in my life in the present moment, my results started to reflect that.
That's great to keep in mind. Thank you so much for coming on the show today.
Yeah, Chris, awesome to be with you. Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thanks for listening to Pivot Perspectives with your host, Chris O'Byrne. Please leave your feedback and visit strategicadvisorboard.com to get the latest and greatest business advice on the planet. Follow us on social media for updates, and we will see you on the next episode.